Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, Susan, start when you're ready, please, if that's okay.
That's great. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session on International Women's Day. My name is Susan Hallam. I've been invited to come along and spend, 40 minutes or so with you talking a little bit about my own company, about having women in business, talking about the advantages that is involved in having a diverse business community, and also to talk about specific things that each of us could be doing individually in terms of responsibility for ensuring this kind of success. Very briefly, in terms of my background, I'm speaking to you today from the beautiful city of Nottingham. I'm the owner of a digital marketing agency, and I'm proud to say that we have recently won Google's top award for agencies in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we're a top performing agency, and there are other accolades that we have won in terms of winning lots of awards. I established the company way back 20 years ago in the year 2000, and we currently employ just over 55 people. So in agency terms, we're a good size agency. We work with clients like the United Nations, we work with Speedo, we work with the BBC. So that we're as a woman owner and a woman founder, what I'm finding is building an agency of this size makes me a little bit different to most of the other agency owners out there. Really, when I attend events for women working in the computing professions, I do tend to stand out, that it does tend to be highly male dominated. My background before I founded the agency, I was a senior lecturer in computing at Nottingham Trent University. So I learned, I am a programmer by nature. And then from there, I'm also finding that working in the digital space that we operate in, which tends to be highly analytical, highly numerate and numbers based, highly involved with coding and programming, that I am actually only one of 5% of leaders that are women operating in science and technology and engineering fields. So I have to say from my own personal experience that there aren't a lot of women, that here in the United Kingdom, only about 15% of roles in the technology field are filled by women. And of course, it's a much smaller number than that. Only 5% of the leaders in these companies are indeed women. Now, what's interesting about this is that you may have heard of a company called McKinsey. They're a large international management consultancy. And they've done some research that demonstrates that companies that have a diverse leadership, meaning diversity, whether it be in gender or whether it be in ethnicity, are statistically proven to be more likely to outperform their peers in terms of profitability for the company. So there is a strong correlation between business performance and having a diverse workforce. So this kind of financial outperformance, McKinsey have been conducting this research year after year after year. And over the last 3 years, it still holds true that the companies in the top quartile, meaning the top 25% of businesses who are high performing, have women in the business, and they tend to have women in leadership roles. Now, when we think about diversity in women, it's kind of like these Crayola crayons. By going for a diverse workforce, by including women, by targeting different ethnicities, we're going to be able to target and recruit more people. We're going to be able to get more experience. We're going to be able to get more opinions. But it isn't just this. When I was a little girl, it was Crayola crayons used to come in a box of 8. And I found that very exciting indeed. However, Crayola now comes in 96 colors, and I think we need to be thinking about that same kind of diversity when it comes to our colleagues and the people that we work with. So if we look at women, I look at the women who work in my own company. Some of us have children, some of us don't. Some of us have worked internationally, some of us haven't. Some of us come from big businesses, some of us only come from an SME experience. So what we're going to be finding is by recruiting different kinds of women into the business, we will be bringing different kinds of opinions, different kinds of experiences. And in my opinion, this tends to lead to greater innovation. It tends to create better thought processes, and it brings more creativity into our technical business in terms of the programming and the coding that we make. But most importantly, the research that we're finding is by having women and other forms of diversity within our leadership teams, it actually improves the quality of our company's decision making. Now, what I mean by that is that there's something called group think, which means if you get all kinds of people who are the same kind of people in a room, they will then turn to come up with the same kinds of decisions. Whereas if we have a more diverse workforce, you're going to find that we make better quality decisions, we make faster decisions, and we tend to operate in a more fact-based fashion rather than the group think of getting a bunch of people who all come from the same academic background, the same social background, the same personal experiences. By having this diversity in the business, it improves the quality of the decision making. So what I'm saying to you is the evidence is all there that we're finding having women increases your profitability, it increases your decision making, it increases your creativity. And yet, if we look at the data in the United Kingdom and we look at students who are studying the computing sciences, which my own master's degree, I come from a computing background, the most current data for 2018, which is what we have here in the United Kingdom, shows that only 13% of students studying in the computing sciences, gaming and other related courses, only 13% are women. So women are not choosing to go into this profession, despite the kind of era in which we're living. And I think what's interesting is it's not just 2018. The thing that I find most of concern is if we were to look over the last 30 years or so, the number is actually going down. So that in 1984, 37% of women were working in the computing professions. Well, that probably also had something to do with data entry and the fact that the computing, it also perhaps had a bit more of a clerical aspect to it as well. And going into the 1990s and the turn of the millennium, it was falling to 18%, and it's down to 13% now. So what we're seeing is a trend that women are actually not going into the computing professions at all. I find it perplexing. So let's talk about that a little bit more. It isn't just the computing sciences, by the way. You're going to be finding whether it comes to any of the STEM, science and technology, engineering, and mathematics, again, the percentage of women tends to be lower than men. Now, I'm using students as an example, but I thought you might be interested to see what's also happening at Google. So Google do produce survey data about their workforce representation, and this data is their most recent diversity report from 2019. And overall, we can see of the Google employees worldwide that women make up about 31% of the Google workforce. But we can look at this a little bit more granularly. We can see at Google that in terms of if we were to split the roles, whether it be technology or non-technology, that women make up 47% of the non-tech roles. Bit interesting, isn't that? If we look a little bit more closely, even dig a little deeper, and we look at Google's leadership, and within Google's leadership, it's only about a quarter of the leadership roles in Google are held by women. And then finally, the statistic I find of most concern, right at Google is if we look at technology roles at Google, only 22% of the roles at Google are held by women. So clearly, we've got these issues about women choosing to go into the profession, whether from school or up through different paths in terms of training and development at university. We've got this inertia that's happening at even progressive organizations like Google, with only 22% of their workforce being women. And speaking of Google, I just wanted to share one more thing with you. Do you know, if you go to Google and search for the phrase toys for 8-year-old girls. So I searched for toys for little 8-year-old girls, and I've circled here 4 of them that I wanted to share with you. And we can see that toys for 8-year-old girls consist of princess bracelets, personalized bracelets, and baby buggies for her dolls and the little girls' babies. So if we look at these 4 particular, and a camera, so in terms of pictures, if we look at these toys for girls, if you were to stop and think, what do you think Google's going to suggest when it comes to toys for boys? So running the exact same search this morning, when I look at toys for 8-year-old boys in those exact same positions, I see make a robotic hand, build your own den, a computer kit, and a mad science laboratory. These 4 toys for boys are all about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The toys for girls are about dolls and about jewelry. So clearly, and even within society, there are issues at this point that we're not finding the signals for children to understand that these are the kind of professions that the little girls should be going into, or developing the skills in the same way that we're developing the skills for little boys. Now, I'm hoping everybody here agrees with me that women should be going into these professions. I hope that you're agreeing with me that we need to be making changes. I hope you would agree with me that we are making progress when it comes to change in the business environment. And I hope as well that you will recognize that there are a lot of things happening to encourage women to start to work in these technical professions. So here's some data from an organization called Grant Thornton. This is 2019 data, where they've identified the kind of activities that businesses are taking to promote gender diversity and to make a place where women are going to work. And again, taking a look at these, I hope that you're familiar with these and the kind of things that perhaps you personally could be doing in terms of making equal opportunities for women, so that if roles are coming available, we're encouraging women to apply for them. That we're offering flexible working hours so that people with family responsibilities are able to employ. That we're providing mentoring and coaching for women. That we even are going so far as to setting targets and quotas to say is if we're recruiting for a new role, let's make sure that we at least have some women on the short list of candidates for which we're applying. So I would hope at your own business, at Coates, you are going to be finding that you will be seeing these things happening. But when Weller got in touch with me, what we were talking about as well is what could you be doing personally to be making a difference within your business to encourage this kind of gender diversity. So what I wanted to do is to leave with you a little bit of an action plan of things that you can practically do in order to be engendering a type of change within your own company and within your own behavior. And I've broken this down into 3 different things that I want you to be thinking about that you could be doing in order to be making a difference. And the first thing I want you to be focusing on is something that I would call the confidence gap. And that means that there is a lot of evidence that suggests that women are less self-assured when it comes to matters that have to do with being competent at what they do. That women, there is still evidence that shows that women behave differently to men when we want to be thinking about how good am I at things. And I just wanted to share with you one slide that they did some research, that they put the men and women into a group and they asked them all 10 questions. And these were actually technology type questions. And they asked the group, all the men and the women, the exact same 10 questions. And after the end of the questions, they then said, how do you think you did? Did you get the questions right? Or how many of the questions do you think you got right? And the women estimated that they got on average 5.8 out of 10 questions right, whereas the men estimated that they got 7.1 out of the questions right. So in other words, the men were estimating with more confidence and more self-assurance and more belief in themselves that they thought they were going to get the questions right. Well, I hope you know what the next slide's going to be, because what I want to now share with you is how many questions they actually got right. So we can see that women got 7.5 out of the 10 questions right, and men got 7.9 out of the 10 questions right. So statistically speaking, the women did just as well as the men when it came to actual technical competence. What the difference is that women didn't have the same self-confidence, the belief that they were going to be as good. Now, the reason I wanted to highlight this is something for you to be thinking about, is that when it comes to self-confidence and that confidence in general, confidence is what makes us turn our thoughts into actions. So it's when we believe we can do something that we then actually do it. If I don't believe I'm going to be as good, then I'm not as likely to even try. So that means if I'm in a meeting and I don't think that you're going to think what I have to say is important, I'm simply not going to say it. If I think that I could suggest that you might improve the way that you do something, could be, if I could suggest an improvement to one of your processes or methodologies, if I don't believe that it's right, then I'm not going to even suggest it to you. So what we have is this whole untapped pool of very, very good ideas that are not coming forward because people do not have the confidence to take that first step forward. Now, clearly, when it comes to sharing ideas about new ways of doing things or changing the way things are working, it doesn't just take confidence. It might be that you need to be creative, or you need to be intelligent, or you need to be, I don't know, angry, so that you're going to take the step forward to make these recommendations of what you want to see changing. But in my opinion, the underlying factor for women is they need greater self-confidence. And again, the classic example of this is from Sheryl Sandberg, who's the Chief Operating Officer at Facebook. She's written a very interesting book called Lean. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, but in it, she does talk about the times that when she wakes up, she's not sure that she's actually entitled to be the Chief Operating Officer at Facebook. This is known as the imposter syndrome. Now, again, I would say this isn't just for women. This is true for many business leaders, whether it be men or women, that sometimes, and I know this myself, that I'm wondering, really, am I good enough to be in the position that I'm in? But we all have these moments of self-doubt and lack of self-belief. But I think women have more of these over time. What we need to be thinking about is how are we going to be building the confidence? And of course, confidence can be acquired. So what we want to be thinking about is your first step within your company is, what do you all need to be doing to be instilling confidence in your female colleagues? And actually, to be frank, it isn't just women, it's also for men, of course, isn't it? What can we be doing as a team to be building confidence in ourselves and confidence and self-belief? And of course, there's an entire body of literature that talks about this, and it's called Creating a Growth Mindset. And a growth mindset means that when there's a challenge facing me this morning, in that little voice inside my head, I don't say, will I succeed or will I fail? You know, will I look good or will I look stupid? Will you accept my idea or will you reject my idea? What we need to be thinking is a growth mindset means that you have this belief in your convictions that you can learn to do things, and that we need to cultivate the idea that we're all getting better and better every day, that we're cultivating our success. If things don't work well, what have you learned from it? And what are you going to do to move forward? So we're seeing the growth mindset way of teaching children at school surfacing. And what we also need to be thinking about is within our existing companies, what are we doing to cultivate that growth mindset, particularly with women, so that they're developing their confidence and giving more to the company? We want to get rid of this thinking that's like, I don't know, I think they're going to think my idea is stupid. What we need to do is to say, I'm going to share my idea, see how it goes. Now, further to that, if we also look at some other research that's out there, that if we think about differences and some statistical difference, I think this came from the University of Ohio, that men will initiate salary negotiations 4 times as often as women do. In other words, men will ask for a pay rise 4 times more readily than a woman will ask for a pay rise. And again, I would attribute this to confidence. And it isn't just the frequency with which they ask, but when they ask for more money, they ask for a pay rise, they're likely to ask for 30% more money than the women will ask for a similar pay rise. So again, this kind of confidence is, in a sense, self-perpetuating, which means we're not asking for the next step up in our career. We're not asking for more money. So that kind of downward spiral needs to be addressed, as well as the upward spiral, which means that we are gaining in the confidence that we're doing. And the way that we can do this is your practical action when you leave this webinar today is that we can all do something called the confidence boost. And what the confidence boost is that a teacher gives the children a mathematics test, and they take the test and they do okay. Now they administer the same test again a second time, but this time, before they take the test, the teacher says to them, you all did really well on that previous test. Now I'd like you to take it again. So what we're saying fundamentally, so what we did is the teacher said, you did well last time. Here, let's try another test. You did great. And the results went up dramatically. So what it is, it's almost a self-fulfilling, self-perpetuating positive process that if I'm feeling positive in my ability, I actually perform better. So do we as colleagues need to be telling people what a good job they're doing? And then in turn, they will, you tell me I'm doing a good job now. The next time I do a job, I'm going to do it even better. So again, one thing that I'd like you to all take away is the opportunity to tell your colleagues what a great job they did and that you think they're going to continue to do a good job at what they're doing. Then what we also need to keep in mind is that as we think about self-confidence, that we do know that success in all of our careers, whether it be women or men, correlates closely with self-confidence. So I'm sure you've all been in meetings where the person who sits there most physically assertive and confident with really good presence, who speaks clearly and who takes control of the meeting is usually the person who ends up leading the meeting. The person who sits there and isn't sure of themselves, their ideas will never come to fruition at that meeting. It doesn't mean that the person sitting there with good posture and speaking clearly is necessarily the most confident person in the room. It's simply the person who has the most confidence. So again, that's my first thing. I want to talk about 3 different things that we can do. And the first thing I want you to be thinking about is what do we do about the confidence issue? And what can you be doing to be instilling confidence in yourself and instilling confidence in your colleagues. Okay, second thing I want to be thinking about for me, and again, this is a priority for me as a business owner, is that we all, I know you guys, we all work in this high-tech industry, and it's really hard to hire the best people. It's known as the war for talent, which means we are all competing to get the very best people to come and join our companies. And here at Hallam, we only hire the best. We take great pride in the fact that everybody that we hire has a great attitude, really strong skills, great team player, wants to delight the customers. And I think you Coates is exactly the same kind of company culture. So what we want to do is we want to be hiring the best people, but I also know we at Hallam, and I suspect at Coates, we need more women to apply for our jobs. So what we need to do is I say to my colleagues, why aren't we hiring more women? And they say to me, they're simply not even applying for our jobs. If they're not applying, that means there's something wrong. So one thing that I'd like you to be thinking about is, what do we do about our job descriptions? What do we need to do in terms of writing job descriptions that are going to be appealing to female applicants? And this could be basic things about focusing on the kind of skills that you want, rather than specific technology. Because if you were to say to me, oh, I need somebody who's going to be really excellent at Python, and the woman applicant says, well, I don't really know Python, she's not going to apply. But you could teach her Python, ever so quickly. So you might not want to be so specific about things that that are going to discourage women from applying, because she doesn't have the skills that you could be training up with relative ease. We might want to showcase the fact that we've got training opportunities. We might want to be looking also to not use language that might put people off with less self-confidence. So again, saying that you want to hire experts at the field, your woman who probably does not have as much self-confidence is probably one of the best coders in the room, but she's still not going to want to say, I'm an expert. I wouldn't want to claim to be an expert, but you know what? She's red hot. She just doesn't feel she has those particular skills. So as we look at the different job descriptions, what I want you to keep in mind is that women tend to apply for jobs. Again, this is a body of research that came from, this came from Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard did some research, and they found that women only apply for jobs when they feel they meet 100% of the requirements, whereas men will apply when they meet about half the requirements. And they reckon if they meet half the requirements, they'll figure the rest of it out. So what we need to be doing is writing job descriptions that will not exclude women from applying when they're probably one of the best candidates that you could be getting, but they're just choosing not to apply. Now, here are some specific examples that have been shared by LinkedIn's talent blog. And they have identified a series of words and phrases that are particularly used in the computing industry that just stop women from applying. These women choose not to apply. So if you use a word like, if you're looking for somebody to do some programming and you call them a coding ninja, you know what? I'm not a violent ninja turtle. So if you say you want to hire a ninja, I'm not the person that you want, but actually I am the person you want. Things like data rock stars and ambitious developers or lead developers. These are very masculine terms that could well stop women from applying. So one thing that I'd like you guys to do is to be even looking at your recruitment job advertising to say, what kinds of language can we be using that will be more appealing to female candidates? Words like collaborative and development and learning environments. These are the kind of things that you may well find you get more candidates. And there is a piece of an app out there that I'd like to signpost you to called the Gender Decoder. The Gender Decoder was written by somebody called Kat Mayfield. I can send you a link to this, but fundamentally what you do is you put your job advertisement into that app. and it will alert you to the fact, are you using masculine language? Is your advertisement skewed to appeal to men? Using language that, like Coding Ninja and Data Rockstar, that are simply not going to appeal to women applying necessarily for that role. Okay, so what we want to do is at first, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was kind of giving people a confidence boost. The second thing we're going to think, and so that's it maybe for the people within our organizations now, what could we be doing differently to help women to promote their careers, to grow within your company, to break forward into a leadership role? Second thing I want to talk to you about, which I've just covered now, is recruitment. We need to get more women applying so that we can then start to reach a more diverse group of talent, pool of talent, so that our company can become more profitable. And then the third thing that I want to talk to about is that we want to be looking in terms of confidence again as part of the performance review process. That we know that that when we look at the performance of, when I review the performance of my managers, one of the things that I often think about is when I'm looking to promote them is do they have the confidence to stand up in a meeting and put their idea forward in a passionate, a strong, a reasonable manner? Will I be able to let them talk to clients in a way that is persuasive and confident? That we do know that these confidence signals are an important part of your career progression. So do we need to be building confidence metrics into that performance review process? Because it's key to moving into these leadership roles. Now, as we look at confidence and we think about growth into leadership roles, I have also found in our own company that's led to two other benefits. And this comes back to that very first point I shared with you at the beginning of my talk. The first point is by having a more diverse group of people, different ages, different genders, different backgrounds, different sexual orientations, all of a sudden we get a much higher level of innovation. By being inclusive and bringing all these different colors of crayons to the table, we are better at meeting our targets. We are better at coming up with solutions. We are better at serving our customers. So what we're finding is by building that confidence into our performance review process, and even within our own self-evaluation process, we're getting increased innovation. And the other benefit I just wanted to mention to you is by having a more diverse workforce, we're having happier teams. We have increased employee satisfaction. So what we're finding is that there's less conflict within the groups because the group is more diverse. There's more collaboration to work with different kinds of people. And from our point of view, most importantly, there's more loyalty. People are staying with the company because in terms of this confidence, because of this diversity, it's an even better place to work. So what I wanted to do right there is for me to share with you, for me as a woman leader in a technical business, the kind of things that we're looking at, that I'm doing personally, that you could be doing personally to encourage this kind of diversity within your workplace. What we're trying to do is get women to have more confidence. We want to get them applying for more jobs. We want to get them studying for careers in science and technology. We want them reaching into these leadership roles. So my idea is rather than me looking like this one singular little sheep, this one women business owner in this large pool of male-owned businesses, we want to be creating a workforce that indeed is more diverse, that is taking advantage of all the strengths that women bring to the workplace, whether it has to do with profitability and culture, innovation, employee satisfaction. So what I'm hoping there is over the course, I guess, of the last, half hour or so, I've given you some ideas of the kinds of things that you could be doing differently in celebration of today's International Women's Day. Wishing you all a very happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Susan. That was really good. Some great messages there. Are you still there, Susan?
Do we have time for Q&A? Do we have time for Q&A at all?
We haven't planned anything, but yeah, if you're okay with that. If anyone has,
it's up to you. I don't know how we're doing. It is 9:37. It's up to you.
Yeah. Feel free for anybody to ask any questions.
Susan, I have a question, if I may. Could you, the figures that we looked at in terms of the Google global workforce, would you mind sharing that slide again for us, please? One of the things that I really wanted to understand is, in order to contextualize that in terms of what the actual global workforce looks like, is that quite representative or is it not?
I think as we look, so as we take, are you able to see my slides now?
No.
I've hit my sharing, so let me see one more time if I can screen share, just desktop. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm just one step behind you. Hang on.
Sure.
Okay, so let me bring that monster up for you. So, are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so this data, by the way, comes from Google's workforce representation. So if you go to diversity.google, you can find it right there. And I think that looking at the trend, these numbers are not far off industry averages. However, if we were to look more granularly at the data, you will find in startups and in small SMEs, micro-sized businesses, women tend to be better represented. So
the younger generations, or certainly the new business entities that are being created now,
yeah,
have better representation from a female perspective.
Yes. So, and as you suggested, it might have to do with the startup, the phase of the business, the age of the business, but I think it also has to do with the size of the business. So even for well-established businesses, as long as they stay small, there will often be more women represented as well.
Okay, so this is not about long-standing. So those businesses that have been around for a very long time aren't stuck in a very traditional route, which is men-heavy. What you're saying is actually it's more relevant to size rather than size, a length of operation.
I think so. I think it depends whether what phase they are in their life cycle and how long they've been trading. Yep.
So if we look at the overall global figures here, what we're saying is 30% of the global workforce at Google is female.
Yes.
And that is pretty much average, right? So 30%, are we saying that 30-ish% of the overall global workforce is actually female?
Yep, I think that's fairly representative. Yep.
Perfect. No, great. I was just trying to help contextualize what that looks like in terms of how do Google operate in relation to the market that's available to them. Yes,
and then while we're there here, we also have available in the United Kingdom an organization called the Tech Talent Charter. I can happily send you the details, but they also produce benchmarking data by company size here in the UK that you might also find interesting.
Perfect. I did do a quick Google as you were talking, actually, and I couldn't see the UK figures, but I could see some global figures. So UK would be really helpful if you do have that.
Right. So the Tech Talent Charter data I'm referring to isn't just for Google, it's industry-wide.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I will be. Were you able to successfully record today's session, do you think, or?
Yes, we have. So I can share that.
Great. That's fantastic. Well, listen, I would like to say thank you to each and every one of you today for taking the time out to participate in a session like today. I'm really hopeful that each of you have learned at least one thing, something that you can do differently in your work that will help to make your business more successful, by being more inclusive in terms of having women even better represented in your company.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks then, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.